everyone to our Challenging Montessori Practice webinar. We felt that it was time to go back to our roots and think again about our relationships with parents. Many of you have expressed quite widely the range of communications you have had with parents during the past 2 years and during COVID. And so we have tapped into our young and talented generation of Montessori teachers to see how they have managed it, both as parents of children in Montessori settings, as well as leaders of the group, negotiating relationships with parents. We have got 3 separate presentations and they will be followed by question and answer. But as we go along with the presentations, please feel free to put questions in the chat and we will try to address them at the end. So don't hold back, try to engage as much as possible. And we will start with Kate Answorth from Playhood in North London. Kate is a mum whose daughter went to Playhood, and so she had the trials of tribulations of being a teacher and mum at the same time, but she will share her experiences of how they work with parents at the moment. She will be followed by Charlotte and Laura, but I will introduce them separately as we go to the different presentations. So over to you, Kate. Thank you for coming.
Hello, thank you. First of all, I'm going to contradict Barbara Isaacs. It's from Unity Montessori, but yes, all the rest of it was absolutely spot on. Thank you so much for having me. I apologise to everyone for my my innate huskiness this evening. I thought I was performing in a jazz club, and then they reminded me I was talking on a webinar. So please excuse my laryngeal husk. I apologize. Yes, so thank you so much for having me here. I work in Montessori, Unity Montessori up in North London. We are a small and relatively new setting. We started just 5 years ago, and I've spoken a few times about how I find it quite difficult to extrapolate my Montessori teaching experience with my experience as a parent, because they started at the same time. I discovered Montessori shortly after having my little one, and then I began my training course when she was just 1, and then when I started my teaching practice at Unity, she came along with me. So my first experience of being a teacher at an early years setting is the same as my first experience of being a mum of a child at an early years setting, and they happen to be the same place. We were really new and we were really small. So there was me and my amazing manager, Alex, and we had 4 children, of which one of them was mine. So we had a really tight community. We had really incredible relationships with those first sets of parents. We had the time, we had the energy, we had the availability of self to really form proper relationships with these families. And I had the experience of, they were my child's friends' parents. They were parenting alongside me, and also they were looking to me as an educator. So it was a really interesting kind of position to be in. And we really knew those children. We knew them inside out. We knew them so well. Their mums would come and have a cup of tea in the morning and complain about work, or they'd come and bring us cakes to celebrate something great that happened in their household. We knew the siblings of the children in our care. And it was really, really special. And I think that we, the families and also the children, got so much from that. But the years have passed and the nursery has grown and COVID happened. And I think that, from being such a tight-knit, tiny little community to being a much bigger school by comparison, but then also to not being able to have parents come in the nursery at all. We have children who started at the nursery last year whose second parent had never come into the building. You know, parent number one had come for a show around, signed their child up, their child had been with us, and parent number two literally had never stepped foot in the nursery, which is, it's really strange to think, you know, as a parent of a small child, if your child is spending 6 hours a day, 5 days a week in a space you've never even visited, that's quite tricky to feel a connection to. So we are now looking at, now the world is opening up, now restrictions are being dropped. How can we re-up that engagement? How can we create these relationships once again? So thank you, Wendelin, for that slide. Yeah, so working with parents, and I just want to say, as I start, by parents, I really do mean primary carers. I mean, whoever is in the life of those children. So not just biological mums, dads, you know, primary caregivers. So yes, we know from all the lovely writing in the Montessori Musings letter this week, Montessori really advocated us to have close and deep relationships with the families of children, to penetrate the bosoms of the family. And this idea of getting to know the child in all ways possible helps us to serve that child so much better. The EPPE research also clearly states that the higher the level of engagement of parents in their child's early education, the better outcome for those children. But I wanted to take it one step further. If we can go on to the next slide, please. You know, yes, it's incredible that, you know, parents being involved can help their children to learn more, to engage in a deeper way with their education. But what I wanted to talk about more was the community aspect. I was talking to a group of our parents this week, and I sat in a room with, you know, 14 of them. I looked around the room, and the incredibly high level of diversity we have within our setting, it's really beautiful to see. And I just thought, you know, if we can come together with our children in our space, out of our space, in the community, what better way can we really role model to our children that socialization, that idea of being a citizen of the world, of, you know, them seeing all of the grown-ups in their life, all of the important people being together, learning from each other, sharing tips, whether it be parents sharing recipes, whether it be first-hand experiences of particular cultural or religious festivals, but really more than lip service, them seeing all of the grown-ups in their space as someone they can go to, as someone they can trust, as someone who they belong with. And what a joyful, beautiful position we have to be in the center of that, to facilitate that, to invite that. And, you know, many, many people living in London don't have their grandparents close by. They don't have those close family ties and networks. So isn't it so nice to be able to create a group that long after they've left us, you know, they are still in that area together. Their children are still in the same age bracket as one another. Think about how deep these relationships can go, and what a great opportunity that is for the children and for their families. So I spoke to a group of parents about their experiences with their child's preschool educators, with their settings. And I got some great stories, perhaps for another time. Wonderful things, you know, initiating parents' leisure nights, you know, come and drink some cheese and wine, get to know each other. And this fostering a sense that pick up and drop off, it's more than a cursory nod. People know each other. You know, when it was said, when people hold workshops, so when grown-ups can come into the setting and learn how to help their children at home. And all the negatives I was given, it didn't matter what the situation was, it was the way it was communicated, it was the way that something was dealt with, it was the way that nurseries did not meet the parent in a way that could help them understand why some situation had occurred. And if we can just go to the next slide, I wanted to look at what these issues with communication might be. You know, what are the barriers? And I wanted to think about inclusivity for a moment. I presume, I hope, we all look to meet each and every child in our setting where they're at. We know that they come with their unique background, their diverse experiences, and a level of engagement that they're comfortable with. Are we truly extending that to their families? Are we truly extending that to the adults in the community? You know, are we thinking little things? Are we being accidentally exclusive? Linguistically, you know, do we know the makeup of each family? Are we making huge faux pas, you know, having a mum's night when one of the children has two dads? Are we really looking at our cohort of parents and serving them? Are we knowing them? Are we meeting them where they deserve to be met? Are we looking at diverse and multimedia ways of engaging our parents? You know, oh, they never answer emails. I've sent 10 emails, they never get back. Do we then reflect perhaps email isn't the way to engage with that family? Maybe they have English as an additional language and they don't feel comfortable reading or writing in English. How else can we engage them? Are we really going through our toolbox to find the best way to engage these parents, to engage the carers? Are we being respectful? You know, are we only inviting them to celebrations? You know, is it only Christmas we let parents come in? So therefore, if you don't celebrate Christmas, you don't choose to bring your child for that particular day, do you miss out? Are we being equal? Are we looking at everybody there, and are we meeting them where they're at? Because we do it with the children, and I think we deserve, our parents deserve, our children deserve us to do the same with them. So we have started, or we're starting tomorrow, a new initiative at Unity where parents are going to come along and spend the morning in the nursery with their children, a couple of families at a time, and they're going to come and play. They're going to come and see their children in their nursery space. And when we've shared this idea, even with others in the Montessori community, it has been met with a kind of shock, aghast reaction. Oh my goodness, you can't do that. Children act so differently when their parents are around. And yes, maybe they are different, but are they acting, or is it just another side to these children that we don't normally see? Is it not best for us to be able to have the opportunity to see the many faceted faces of these children? Can we not better serve them if we know what their relationships are like with their parents? And excuse me. I apologize. And so it leads me to my last slide, and it's about us being vulnerable. Are we opening ourselves up to, you know, we are practitioners, we are professionals, we are in a way experts, but sometimes is putting that hat on stopping parents from being open with us? Can we allow ourselves to be seen to not always know what we're doing, to be seen to falter, to be seen to need help? Because when we show that side of us, when we are vulnerable with our parents, they are more likely to trust us, to be empathetic, and to be vulnerable with us, to ask us the questions they really want to get the answers to. And I think if we can be open and honest and vulnerable, so can they. And once that true connection is created, that is the circle in which we best support each and every child. So I'm going to finish because I think I'm going to cough again, but thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Kate. I absolutely loved the openness with which you have presented your questions, and with the questions with which you have challenged us to really rethink our relationships with our parents. And I must say, it brought a memory from my first year of teaching when I welcomed one of the fathers by saying, "Camilla, your grandpapa is here." At which he said, "Well, actually, I'm her father." And yeah, I could have gone through the floor at that moment. And that was 35 years ago. But those slips are so easily done. And I never met the family before the children came to school, because I wasn't the one who interviewed the family to come to the school, because it was a big school. So there are challenges in connections with the families and actually knowing the families well, so that you can really serve the child and the parents, as you have said so very wisely. So thank you so much. And we will go over to Charlotte, who is a single parent at the moment, and she has got 2 children, and she has been a Montessorian for many years and traveled the world. At present, she is in Dubai, and she also runs Enriching Environments Instagram page, and does work with parents individually, but also in the French school where she works with toddlers, and is in the process of introducing Montessori toddler group to quite a conventional maternelle, which the French run in quite a precise way. So over to you, Charlotte.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Thank you, Wendelin. Thank you so much for inviting me, and hello to everyone. My daughter Olivia, it's late here in Dubai. It's 11, and my daughter Olivia knew about this evening, and she's actually just woken up, and she's under the table in front of me. I'm hoping to coax her out so you can see her all on screen, but she's hiding at the moment. Thank you so much for having me. And as Barbara says, I'm currently in a French maternelle, in the first stage of transforming them to Montessori, and I'm in a toddler environment. And I've been here in Dubai for 7 years. And the really exciting thing about being in Dubai, and what I love learning so much about being here, is that we have 93 different nationalities in this one city. And so that means with 93 nationalities, we have a huge opportunity for learning, for getting curious about other families, about cultures. And what I found in the work that I do here is that Montessori is this golden thread that can run through everything. Almost everyone has heard of Montessori, and because it can be so relevant in different cultures, I always find this, particularly with practical life, it's so interesting to go into people's homes and see and look at what they have and what the customs are, and how we can bring practical life, you know, honoring what is relevant to their culture. So it's really, really fascinating being here in Dubai, in the UAE. And thank you, Wendelin. She's just going to bring up what we are going to go through this evening. And actually, Kate was mentioning about COVID times and not having parents in the classroom. And actually, tomorrow is the first parent conferences we have in school in 2 years. So since pre-COVID, the last ones we had were February of 2020. And yeah, tomorrow are our first ones. So it's going to be really exciting. And as Kate said, none of the parents who we're welcoming tomorrow have ever been into the classroom because of COVID restrictions. And so it's so interesting to be preparing today, and nerve-wracking, of course, to get everything all up together exactly how we want it to be, and to introduce, and we're going to be walking through the parents as they come in the door, as the children arrive in the morning, and so they can really walk in the footsteps of their child and feel what the experience is that their child is having when they come in the door. So that's really, really exciting. Thank you, Wendelin. So what I feel really honored to have here is this unique experience, as I said, of learning so much from different nationalities. And what's a really, really important part of working with families here in the UAE, which I want to discuss this evening, is the family and the household dynamics. 94% of families here in Dubai, here in the UAE, have a nanny, quite often a live-in nanny, and to help them. The household staff is the norm here, rather than the exception, like it might be in other parts of the world, in Europe, in the UK. And so whenever I work with families within my setting or one-on-one in the home, the consideration is of the multi-generational household. Multi-generational households are very, very common here. So grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, along with the main unit of parents and children, are often working together. And then live-in household staff. So what that calls for from us as practitioners here in the UAE, as I found, is lots and lots of curiosity to understand the dynamic, cultural awareness, lots of listening, communication, and as Kate so beautifully said, communicating in a way that's appropriate. It's the time and space to understand the needs of each family. As I say on the next slide, it's very, very common for us to see nannies, household staff, even drivers pick up and drop off children in the morning and in the afternoon when they leave. So it's a really, really normal part of life here. And so it's really, really essential that we don't base all of our communication solely on the parents, on the people on the registration form. The communication is really with the household staff, with grandmas and grandpas, aunts and uncles, who are a huge part of the child's life. Thank you, Wendy. And then, as I say here, the reason that so many people have household staff here is because we are an expat country. Most people don't have any family here. So there's lots of working parents, both parents working and no family to help out. And also cultural norms. For example, if we're looking at Arabic culture, Asian culture, it's completely normal to have live-in staff, and that would be the norm rather than the exception. And so that means that our collaboration is a close collaboration between myself and my team and nannies and parents. And what's really wonderful in terms of the dynamic of that is that in my classroom, I have an assistant and I have a nanny, and my nanny, my wonderful nanny, Emma, who always remembers everything, is Filipina. And quite often the nannies of the children predominantly are Filipina. So Emma, my nanny from my classroom, has this wonderful bond. She's the one that establishes a relationship initially with the nannies who are doing drop off and pick up. And so that from there, the environment, the relationship can grow. Emma will establish that first link, and then she'll report back to me. She'll obviously speak in Tagalog, which is Filipino language, to the nannies. They'll reach an understanding. And when we're doing things like toilet learning, which we're doing a lot at the moment with toddlers, Emma is the first port of call, because Emma's doing predominantly the toilet learning in the environment, and then at home the nanny will be doing all the function of caring for a child, dressing, toileting, eating, feeding, all of that will be done by the nanny. So it's so wonderful for us to have, and Olivia's just said sleeping as well, putting the child to sleep. Olivia's enhancing my presentation. So it's so essential for us to have that first link between Emma and the nannies, and then she informs me of where we are, and then I can speak to the parents as well. So it's really, really important that I have that network within the classroom and with the parents themselves. There's also an interesting dynamic that we see in the classroom with regards to the nanny's place within the family, her role as a member of the household staff. Some nannies will have been with the child since birth, since the early months, and they will have two primary attachments. So with the parents, but with the nanny as well. And that's really, really important. Again, when children first come into the environment, it's often, it's quite common for the children to form an attachment. Ones that have nannies who do all the function of parenting at home, the child will form an attachment again with Emma initially, and then they'll be ready to work with me. So it's very much Emma introducing them to the environment and helping with the function, the snack and toileting and things like that. And then they feel ready to come and work. It's certainly not what I've been used to before in South Africa, in London, where we would firstly get them into exploring the shelves. It's very much more getting them comfortable with someone who's similar to their primary attachment and caregiver at home, and then they can be usually song works really well with toddlers in my environment, then tempting them into work and finding them something that's really holding their interest, capturing their interest from there. So yeah, it's autonomy is something that's really challenge when we have a strong nanny culture here, and that's most of the work that that I do with parents and with households, and that's mainly what we're going to be talking about tomorrow with the parent conferences, is that when we have the primary caregiver, the nanny, with a very, very caring and nurturing approach, and often the role of the nanny is essentially to keep the child clean and fed and safe. So that means that there isn't a huge amount of room for autonomy. The nanny obviously is very cautious about letting the child climb, run, play, dig in the soil, you know, doing all the things that we would know are essential for the child. So it can be really challenging for households when working with the parents and nannies to explain the importance of the role of autonomy and allow parents to take a step back, allow parents to sort of give permission to the nanny to take a step back and allow the child to feed themselves, for example, to start dressing themselves. And again, that's whole part of the process that we have, that I have with my team. Everything that we do with parents is all the three of us, nanny, assistant, and myself, and with the parents and the nannies. So it's just not one message filtering through. It's really, really important that we have our family, as it were, within the setting that speaks to the whole family, which is the parents. So the autonomy, the need for autonomy, and the desire for the need for us to help parents, to support parents and nannies understanding the child's drive, the inner drive for autonomy, is really, really strong. And it's something that that's our main focus, I would say, particularly with dressing and eating is our two dominant areas there. I think the next slide would be great now. Thank you, Wendelin. The other thing we work on a lot, which is a lot of fun, is multilingualism. It's the norm here. Two languages, 3 languages is most common. We have a huge Lebanese community. And so French, Arabic, and English is common. And amazingly, adults would be speaking in 3 languages in one sentence, which obviously is mind-blowing, but for the child, it's really quite tricky when they're little. So it's a lot of talking to parents and explaining that if we could have one person, one language, that would be really, really helpful for the child, and really supporting them in honoring their own culture and their mother tongue, not placing English as at the top of the hierarchy. That's something that I find a lot, is that there's parents would want to speak English as the first language to the children, rather than honoring, you know, they might have a native French and Arabic speaker, but they'll all speak in English to the child. And part of the work of picking that is saying, well, they're going to learn in a city like Dubai, they're definitely going to learn English. So don't worry about English, focus on the richness of your culture and language. And you know, it's so incredible when I see the older children in our school, where in Casa in elementary, who are, you know, completely trilingual and reading and writing completely literate in 3 languages, age 6, 7. I mean, it's just mind-blowing what's possible, you know. And one of them that's you know, one of the languages, sort of Arabic, French, and Olivia's talking to me about her Arabic. You know, them being able to speak and read and write in Arabic, French, and English is incredible. And in my setting, for example, I have a little girl, so we speak only in French in the setting. Then her mother speaks in Urdu to her father in Arabic. Her sister goes to a British school, so they speak, the siblings speak to each other in English, the mother in Urdu, father in Arabic, and then French here. And that's really the norm here. So it's so incredible that children have this opportunity here. And so much of our work is to explain to parents that we really want to encourage this and make the most of the sensitive period for language, so that it's just, the children can just then fly when they're a bit older with that. I think that's everything I wanted to say for this evening. Thank you so much for inviting me. And as I said at the beginning, just circling back to Montessori can really be the glue that that binds all the nationalities and the cultures and the multilingualism, everything that's happening here in Dubai. It's a really unique opportunity to understand household dynamics and understand different cultural relevance, what's culturally relevant and appropriate and not. And just sharing a small story, which is funny but not funny, but we had quite a few incidents of biting in the toddler community, which of course is normal. And unpicking things like that within the cultural context is that I've come across a couple of cultures here where biting a child on the arm is a sign of affection. And so that's a really delicate and needing to be quite a respectful conversation to have with parents, to say, okay, this is completely normal, but when that being transferred to the classroom, then we've got to find another way of showing affection. And for some children, that's not going to be well received, and we're in a toddler environment. So it's one of those really sensitive conversations which just help us all to grow so much and to get curious more about what's going on. It's always this air of curiosity, what's going on here, what's the background, that we can support parents with, so we can best support all the children in the environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. It is such the challenges that face you are so multifaceted, and I love the way how you have managed to explain them in such a positive way. I'm sure that they don't always feel that positive, and I also hope that our participants will be able to tease out elements of your presentations which are relevant to their own setting. The children who have got nannies, the children who live in a multi-generational environment, the children who don't have English as their first language. And I very much appreciate your reminder that the home language carries culture and is very, very important to the child's sense of well-being and belonging. And that brings us to the presentation of Laura Perfetti from Playhood. Now I got it right. My apologies to Kate for previous allocating her to a different school, which was not intentional in any way. And Laura works in a setting where the parents also work, a very unique environment where parents, children, and teachers meet around the kitchen table. So over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Barbara, and thank you, Wendelin. Thank you, Charlotte and Kate, for your presentation too. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm very aware of the time, so I'll try to squeeze in the presentation, I promise. So just to start with a little intro about myself, I'm a Montessori trained educator, now probably 10 years in the Montessori education. And a couple of years ago, we co-founded Playhood with Karen Partridge. Playhood is, as Barbara was saying, is a very unique setting because has a Montessori nursery in the back garden of Karen's house, and on site there's a co-working space for parents. So the idea of Playhood is this created this community approach, a community around the child, a very strong community around the child. And if we can start the presentation, you see that we actually titled the presentation Community Approach. And this is a wonderful Playhood family. We can go to the next slide. Playhood was launched in 2020 in response to a pandemic with only 6 children per day. So 6 families in the co-working space per day. And it started with the idea of Karen Partridge that before working in a community work and having her mother-in-law as a Montessori teacher and owning or her own Montessori school in Manchester, she was very familiar with the method. And when she had her first child, she started looking for nurseries and realizing very soon that the way how she was perceiving education, it was very different from what she was finding, because as a parent, she wanted to be able to go back to work and also being very involved in the child's education. And she felt that that side of involvement as a parent was a little bit missing. So a little bit out of frustration, she started looking for different types of options and see how she could be very involved as a parent in her child's life. When I met Karen from as an educator, as a Montessori educator, I wanted to really deepen the relationship with parents and understand better how we could not only engage them in the nursery in a partnership, but really involve them. Because for me, there's a little bit of difference between engagement and involvement. Engagement sometimes has to do with a commitment towards something, towards an issue, while involvement has to do with really taking part of everyday life, making decisions together, planning together. So we decided to co-found Playhood together and really give the child this sense of a community around every day, based on values like trust, collaboration, and most important, playfulness. But the way how we like to perceive Playhood is as an experiment, as a lab, because probably the first two questions that Karen and I thought about were, how would the children respond to their proximity with the parents, just working on site in the nursery, and how the parents would respond to their proximity with their children? So at the beginning, we didn't know. Definitely being very small helped us, and it helps us to tweak the process of experimentation and really assess what works and what doesn't. Next slide, please. So we taking the Montessori Triangle that we probably know very well, where we see the educator, the environment, the favorable environment, and the child. We started squaring a little bit this idea, including parents, but the child's family. So even grandparents and siblings are involved in the child's life at Playhood. Sometimes they come to do activities with us. Siblings come to read the stories to our children. So we started showing children that they were surrounded by a very extended family. Next slide, please. The way how we got inspired to build the Playhood, and we are still inspired by, we've been drawing, on inspiration from all around the world. Just to mention Simone Davis with the Jacaranda Tree Montessori or the Wildflower Montessori schools, but also just thinking of the same idea of Montessori that really encouraged us on our writings in helping the child to thrive, and through that connection and sense of belonging with the community around the child, with the family behind the child. And the same Tina Bruce, in the 90s already was talking about partnership with parents. Why? Because the effect and the benefit that the children have when we really truly involve parents in their daily life and nursery is really without doubt. And if we can go please to the next slide, we can definitely see that research proved that there's an increased sense of security in children, confidence, consistency. And this is what we are really experiencing at Playhood at the moment. There's stronger friendship they are creating, and especially the consistency. And I'll tell you in a minute how we are creating that at Playhood with some practical examples. It's really impressive when the work that you do at nursery is role model and brought to home, and vice versa. The work that parents do at home is brought into the nursery. Next slide, please. So now I will give you some practical examples of the way how we work together with parents, with the children and the Montessori guides. So first of all, we started running a step-down approach that really sees the educators as the only people truly expert of the child's life and child's development. Yes, we know that we have a knowledgeable, we are very knowledgeable of the child's development, but also we must remember that parents are the people who know their children best. And this is something very important that needs to stay with us. And also, we thinking of the Montessori philosophy, you know, the same way we don't try to fill up children's mind with our lessons, we should do the same with parents. So we stop considering them as just empty recipients or to fill out with our concept of the child's development or what happens every day in the classroom. So here you can see these are the keywords we worked around at Playhood and we're still working on. The first one is responsiveness, which has to do with the way we share feedback with children and the way how we both, we share feedback with the parents and the way how both parents and educators really implement in the nursery the ideas that both sides have. So we have two types of feedback, one weekly and one monthly. The weekly one is based on the child's week, while instead the monthly one is based on schemes and schemas, because both of us, parents and educators, did a training with Lynette Broke and the schema play. We send feedbacks about what kind of activities and schemas children have been around throughout the month, and parents do the same with us. And then we implement each other's ideas and activities in the nursery and at home. We do workshops, either informal over lunchtime or formal workshops where we follow the parents' interests and their requests. If they have specific topics they want to know more about, we can be us as educators doing the workshop, or it can be one of the parents who did a specific research and does the workshop with the rest of Playhood, or we invite in people that are experts on that topic. We plan together. We have a board where we put monthly or termly ideas in it, in terms of festivals or any sort of ideas the child can be interested in. Also, we're doing a lot of work in sustainability, because again, either parents and us as educators, we did a training course with the education for sustainable citizenship. Proximity is the second word. So the proximity is physical, because obviously the parents are on a site working from their co-working space. And that helps us to really involve them in the nursery life. How? We just started a process of 4 stages of involvement, where the parents first come to observe as a proper Montessori educator. They sit in a corner and they look around for during the work cycle what's going on in the nursery with their own child or with other children. And then there's a second stage of development where the parents are asked what were their interests when they were children. So the next time they come, they will find the activity, their interest on a tray. And we start discovering together how to play with the activity. Because I think very often as adults, we forget that we can still be playful and we can play. So it's nice to encourage them to find that child that we sometimes lose a little bit within ourselves. And then there's a third stage of development when the parents come and they get a little bit of coaching around the nursery in terms of the activities we have displayed on the shelves, or in terms of when to interfere with a child, when to step back. And then there's a 4th stage of development where, again, it's a free play. So the parent can come different time of the day, following ground rules and following boundaries that we have in the nursery. But there's a free play around the nursery space. And then the next word is network. Simplicity. The simplicity of the shared routine. The parents have this fully equipped workspace that really enables them to focus on the work, to feel calm, because the children are just next door. And it's a little bit like the favorable environment of the child. The co-working space for parents is their favorable environment. The network. So there's this strong network, not only in Playhood, but also outside Playhood, in terms of sharing contacts, collaboration, grow opportunities professionally, There's a strong social life for children in terms of play dates, outings, adventures together, support between parents, a little bit like a vertical grouping. We share a toy library, a book library, where so we reuse resources within Playhood to make sure that we always recycle activities or toys or books that are on a child's interest. And also, the more the parents really deepen this friendship, obviously, the more the children feel part of this community. And we can see how children know everyone, parents, everyone dads, everyone moms in the nursery, and you can see that sense of security when they're surrounded by them. Is really an extended family. The last one is radical transparency. The radical transparency is obviously physical, because as we said, everyone is there, so there's nothing to hide. Everything is in front of our eyes every day. But it's also personal, because there's the share of a lot of reflections as well. Us as educators, we know very well that we need to be always, we need to feel that our reflective practitioner is always awake in us. But also parents do a lot of reflections, and they actually are very often helped by a parent coach in understanding what kind of parenting methods they following or the kind of parents they are. The last one is the experimental, that, as I was saying before, Playhood is a lab. So we tweak and change every day, monthly, or in the last 2 years, everything that we thought, worked really well or didn't work. So we could manage in a different way, asking to other experts, asking to parents how to improve. So going towards the conclusion, next slide, please. Two things I want to say. So these first of all are two quotes from the parent point of view, one from one of our children point of view about Playhood and what they feel about Playhood. And very important for me to specify that when we started Playhood, one of the most common question I got asked was, oh, I imagine that only mums come to work from there, and so are the only ones involved in Playhood's life. Absolutely no. We have a lot of dads that are involved in Playhood's life every day. They work on site. They come and do their stages of involvement. They come and do reflections. They come and share lunch with us. So it's not, we need, I think, to stop seeing education only from one point of view. So these are two quotes from one of, as I was saying, from the parents and one from a child. And I'm pretty sure that you are reading through, and I'm not going to go through it and take you more time. But I really want to share my point of view as an educator, what it means to me working at Playhood. So I can say that Playhood really is helping me to have a full picture of the child, and help me to really tailor my commitment and my approach towards each child. There's an openness in sharing information, concern, fun stories that I've really never experienced before. I feel that the Montessori philosophy is generally applied. And most of all, the most important thing that we see with my colleagues every day is this incredible consistency that children are experiencing, and role modeling they are experiencing between nursery life and home life. So if I can have the last slide, please, Wendelin. To really conclude, I want to say that we are, in the next years, we are growing so much, and we want to develop Playhood towards a research as well, and trying to really measure what we've been doing in these years, and really how can I say, be able to really extrapolate the learning that we have been doing in this year. So we're really happy to collaborate, do research, and hear from all of you. So please don't hesitate to contact us. to join. If you want to join a team, we're growing so much, or if you know founders or anyone interested in doing research with us or collaborate on any other initiative, we're really open to new projects. So I'm very happy to share my contact in the chat, or maybe, I don't know if Wendelin, you can in the email tomorrow. But definitely, yes, please be in touch with us, because we are really open to new ideas. Thank you so much. Thank you, Wendelin. Thank you, Barbara, Kate, Charlotte, and everyone who attended. I hope it's not too late.
Thank you so much, Laura. What an inspiration, what a brave model to work to, and how lucky for the children who are benefiting from this extended family and the relationship it can bring them. It really represents the New Zealand woven mat, where all the threads of the mat come together to create a unity for the children, and what learning opportunity for everybody, every member of the family, all the teachers, and of course, the children. So thank you, all three of you, giving us such wonderfully joyful experiences of working with families and reminding us of the importance and the complexity of nurturing families and therefore benefiting children. Please ask questions. Either put up your hand or put your thoughts into the chat. You may also want to share your own experiences of working with families and what works for you. After all, each one of us has got something to contribute. Each one of us has an opportunity to enrich the whole and contribute to our community of learners. We may be more grown up, but we are still learning, and there's huge benefit in sharing. So please feel free. Shade?
Laura, thank you so much for that very inspiring model that you shared with us. My one curiosity is around sustainability, because you have 6 families, and I'm just wondering, with this model, are you able to reach all classes of socio-economic backgrounds? I'm wondering about the cost of delivering this wonderful service.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, obviously everything, cost and so on, is shared on the website, but yeah, definitely it's a tiny family of 6 children, and I understand the small group probably helps a lot to work on a lot of different things in a much easier way. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm replying properly to your question, but
You're on the way. Maybe I can be more direct myself.
Yes,
so
please.
Would this meet the needs of families that don't have money?
Yeah, I mean, I understood your question, but well, at the moment, probably no. Even though the fees are not much different than other fees, other Montessori nursery fees. So it's a very small business. And hopefully, if the things will change in the future, we are really working so much towards having the chance to have fundings, bursaries, where we can have people in with not the same cost that other parents are paying right now. So we're really developing a lot of projects and trying to do as much as we can to make sure that this education and this small family can reach other people who not necessarily can pay for a Montessori education.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shade, for the question, and thank you, Laura, for the answer. This is a question which plagues Montessori nurseries on to a lesser or greater degree, because the majority of schools are fee paying, and we have been very much reminded of this challenge in the recent New York article about Montessori education. And we will, there are issues about the credibility Montessori in the context of general education. We have also got an interesting question from Georgia, who is one of the Playhood parents, who wants to know, if this model of close relationship working with parents can be sustained by primary schools and as the children progress in their education. Georgia, did you mean Montessori settings, or did you mean generally schools?
Yeah, sorry, I typed because my internet was unstable. But yeah, I guess my head's so in the early years, and for many it's their first child, and you can set the bar with them on how they're going to interact with any other setting the child attends. So I'm assuming many move on to non-Montessori schools. Of course, some stay in Montessori schools, but you're going to find a really different context elsewhere. And I just wanted to think about that and transition a little bit, if anyone had thoughts.
I think I would like to share from personal perspective, and I'm sure Shade will share in a moment. Montessori tells us, and lots of other people say the same, that the first 6 years of life are the most important. We are planting the seeds. We are extending the attachment model beyond the immediate family to the immediate community. And those relationships will be held not only in the child's thinking patterns, but also in the child's heart. So I would say that the children at Playhood, or all children where the practitioners really care about their experiences, are taking forward a model which will keep them in good stead. But Shade, what did you want to say?
Yeah, I was going to say a similar thing, and I was also going to add that children at different planes of development have different needs. So where the 0 to 6 child requires this deep attachment, when the child gets to the next plane, the 6 to 12 plane, they're more independent, and they look now more to their own community and peers as the place of security for them. But that wonderful grounding and foundation they have from 0 to 6 will take them through the rest of their life. And so it's about doing what is necessary at the right stage. But if we carry on what we're doing at 0 to 6 into 6 to 12, it may become an obstacle.
Yes, and we mustn't think that the child is still the same child. They grow and progress. And of course, when they become teenagers, then it is a totally different ballgame.
Mm-hmm.
Then they need as much independence as possible. Do we have any other questions or comments or observations in the audience?
Hi, I think it's really brave bringing the parents in, because I always thought children sort of act up when their parents are around. But I liked how Kate said that she wants to see actually the dynamics between the parent and the child.
Can I say something about it? Sorry. Sorry, this is very interesting, and I love that. Yeah, Kate is going to have this experience tomorrow. Just briefly, because we've been having already parents coming in to do observations and to get involved in the nursery. The response I saw in children towards it was incredible. I mean, yes, you can see like the smaller one, the youngest one acting out a little bit, but I think they're so confident in their children's Montessori house that I can see them just carry on doing their own things. They show the parents around sometimes, like, oh, you can sit down here. This is our ground rule. Don't be too loud, please. Or, you know, they share with them the ground rules, but then they just carry on throughout the hour or 2 hours the parents are there, just doing their own things, because that is their house. That is their own environment. We are guests into it. And it's incredible to experience that with the children. So yeah, sorry, I just wanted to.
That's amazing, Laura. So did you train, like, did you have the children with you, and were they like sort of introduced to the ground rules and the parents were allowed to come in afterwards? Is that how it worked?
Yeah, when the parents walk in, children generally greet them without us saying anything as educators. It just goes spontaneously to them, and they
but
they
sorry,
tell
how
them,
did
like,
you start?
You need to take your shoes off, because in the nursery you can't wear shoes. If you want to go outside, you need to wear shoes. And so they tell them.
That's so cute.
You know.
But how did you start? Like for instance, if you had a child come in for the first time, would their parents stay with them, or would the parents sort of separate, and then once they were comfortable and used to the environment, then their parent would be welcomed in to do that sort of?
Yeah, well, with the COVID has been obviously a little bit tough, but the good thing for us was that we settled in. We don't have new children at the moment, but when we started having new children coming in, the settling was quite good for us, because it happened in summer. So we could have the parents settling the child outdoor most of the time. So yes, the parents were coming in where it was possible and in a safe area to settle in the children. Now, in the last 2 years, we didn't really have new children. Or no, maybe actually one, but it was a little bit older. So the settling is just follow the normal procedure that probably is done in any other nursery. You know, we play by ear, we follow the child and see how the child settles in with the parent present. When the COVID restrictions were more important and higher, obviously we needed to make some changes and tweaks, but otherwise, yes, parents are very welcome in with new children.
But
Thank you.
There's also a need for flexibility to accommodate different children and different families. Some children settle very quickly, other children need more attention. And I think that it is not about training of the child. It is about role modeling for the child. What would be the optimum way of behavior? And they will, if we demonstrate a good example, the children buy into it very quickly. Would you not say?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. There's lots of ideas, lots of opportunities to mull over in one's head. I hope that each one of you will be able to take a little offering to your setting tomorrow to perhaps share with your colleagues and to share maybe with the parents. I must say I'm delighted that the relationships we have with parents are very different to what they were 35 years ago when I first started teaching. And I wish you all a happy International Women's Day. Celebrate not only Montessori, but celebrate also each other, and have a lovely evening. Next week, we have got a book club, and the next following 2 weeks we will be working together with Montessori Europe. We will have a presentation about preparing Montessori environment from Gonzaga Ready, and we will also have a presentation by one of our partners from Think Equal about developing children's emotional and social well-being. So there's much to look forward to as March progresses and springs come into our gardens. Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Kate, Charlotte, and Laura. And thank you, Olivia, for helping your mom to do her presentation. Thank you.